Today, we're going to take a journey through a real roller coaster of human faith, all captured in 5 incredibly powerful psalms. We're going to go from the highest of highs, triumphant praise for God's power, all the way down into the deepest valleys of personal despair and national ruin, and then we'll join the desperate climb back toward hope and restoration.
So you might want to buckle up. Here's the roadmap for where we're headed. We'll kick things off with the awesome victory in Psalm 76, then we dive right into a personal crisis in 77. From there, we zoom out for the sweeping history lesson of 78, really feel the collective grief of 79, and finally, we land on this powerful plea for renewal in Psalm 80.
All right, let's dive right in. We're starting with Psalm 76. Now, this is a song of pure triumph. A lot of folks think it was probably written to celebrate a huge military victory, maybe even that miraculous moment when Jerusalem was defended against the massive Assyrian army. The whole thing is about God's majesty and his absolutely fearsome power as the ultimate judge.
So right out of the gate, the psalmist grounds God's presence in a real physical place, Jerusalem, which is called by its ancient names here, Salem and Zion. And this is so important because for the people of Israel, God wasn't some far-off abstract idea. No, he lived right there with them, in their capital city. His reputation was totally tied up with their fate.
The imagery here is just, wow, it's so vivid. It paints this picture of God as the ultimate warrior king. See, he doesn't just fight a battle, he completely obliterates the very tools of war, like it's nothing. He stops entire armies cold. This is a picture of absolute, overwhelming power that leaves even the mightiest kings on earth just trembling in their boots. So when you boil it all down, the main point of Psalm 76 is this: God's authority is absolute, it's final, and the only right response to a judge that powerful and that righteous isn't just a little bit of respect, it's total, awe-filled reverence and worship.
Okay, let's keep moving because the tone is about to do a complete 180. After that mountaintop experience of national victory, Psalm 77 just plunges us down into a deep, dark, personal valley of struggle and doubt.
You know, the way this psalm is structured is just brilliant. It's really a tale of two halves. The first part is this raw, gut-wrenching cry of pain, but then there's a pivot. The writer makes a conscious decision to change his focus, and that shows us something huge about faith, right? It's not always a feeling. Sometimes it's a choice to remember what's true, even when nothing around you feels true.
I mean, you can just feel the anguish in these questions. This is the sound of someone who feels totally and completely abandoned. He's wondering if God's whole character has changed, if maybe his kindness and mercy have just run out. It's such a deeply human moment of doubt.
And this is the pivot. This is the conscious act of will that changes everything. His faith starts to rekindle, not because his problems suddenly vanish, but because he deliberately shifts his mind away from his present pain and onto God's proven track record. He's literally fighting his feelings with his memories of God's faithfulness.
So, from that intensely personal moment of choosing to remember, we zoom way out to get this panoramic view in Psalm 78. This psalm is basically a history lesson set to music. It was designed to be passed down from generation to generation so that they wouldn't make the same mistakes as their ancestors.
Now, this timeline just kind of scratches the surface of what's in this super long psalm, but it really captures the story. It recounts all of God's amazing, miraculous acts from Egypt all the way to the Promised Land, and it sets them right up against the people's repeated failure to remember any of it. It's like the national version of the inner battle we just saw in Psalm 77, a huge struggle between God's faithfulness and human forgetfulness.
And the psalm really hammers home this recurring pattern. It's this tragic cycle of grace, followed by amnesia, then rebellion, and then renewed grace. And what's really highlighted isn't just the people's failure, but God's unbelievable, persistent compassion in the face of it all.
So the crucial point here is that this history isn't just for the record books. Its entire purpose is to teach the next generation so that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God and maybe, just maybe, break the cycle that their ancestors were trapped in.
Okay, so after that long, reflective look at history, Psalm 79 is like a punch to the gut. It yanks us into the painful, brutal present of a national catastrophe. This is very likely the destruction of Jerusalem and its temple by the Babylonians. All those warnings from Psalm 78, they've all come true.
This opening verse is just brutal. There's no poetry here trying to soften the blow. The Holy Land is invaded, the sacred temple is desecrated, and the city of God is nothing but a pile of rubble. It's a scene of total, heartbreaking devastation.
And this right here is the heart of the lament. It's that desperate, agonizing question we all ask: how long? The people know their suffering is a result of God's judgment, but it feels endless. They're crying out for it to stop, even appealing to God's own reputation among the other nations. You know, what this psalm does is it validates that kind of communal pain. It gives a voice, a script for when a whole nation or community is on its knees. It teaches that the way forward isn't silent despair, but turning to God with raw honesty, confessing sin, and just crying out for mercy.
And then, rising from the ashes of that devastation in Psalm 79, we get to Psalm 80. This is a unified national plea for God to just turn back to his people and restore them. The lament is starting to transform into a focused, direct appeal for help.
The central metaphor in this psalm is just so powerful. Israel is pictured as this choice vine that God himself carefully planted and took care of. But now its protective hedges are all broken down, leaving it trampled and devoured by anyone who passes by. It's an image that communicates both how cherished they were and how utterly vulnerable they are now.
Here, we hear the psalm's central chorus for the very first time. It's such a simple but profound prayer. They're not asking for a military victory or for riches. Their entire hope is pinned on God simply turning his face back toward them again. For them, just having his favorable presence is salvation.
Now the plea is repeated, but notice how it gets more intense. This time they call on the God of hosts, which means the commander of heaven's armies. They're moving from a general plea to a specific appeal to his supreme power, asking him to fight for them and deliver them from their enemies.
And here we reach the climax. The final refrain is the most intense of all. They use God's personal covenant name, Lord, or Yahweh, and they combine it with God of hosts. This isn't just a cry to some powerful deity anymore. It's a full-throated appeal to the God who made specific promises to them, reminding him of their special covenant relationship. So, as we look back, this journey has been intense. We've gone from the absolute height of praise for God's sovereign power all the way through the dark night of the soul, both for one person and for a whole nation, and we've landed on a desperate but deeply rooted hope for restoration. And that really leaves us with the final thought. These psalms put a huge emphasis on memory. In our own lives, in our moments of victory or our moments of crisis, this whole collection challenges us to ask, what do we choose to remember? Do we focus on our pain, or do we, like the psalmist, make a choice to fight, to remember the wonders of old and place our hope there?